Welcome viewers to Historical Journeys. Christopher Hamilton, a diver, plunges into the turquoise waters off the coast of a pristine Pacific island in search of ghosts. Under him, somewhere in the darkness, the remaining parts of 1940s airplane lie on the sea, frozen in time, and their bulky shells transport him back to one of the important milestones of the Second Great War as they rise up out of the misery. 3 depressed wrecks off the Solomon Islands are tormenting tokens of the Second Great War. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It only takes a second, and you won't miss any of our future videos. Let's get started. For a long time, stowing away from the dimness of this debacle, not very many individuals of the Solomon Islands. Yet, because of crafted by pioneers like Hamilton, we can see its strange magnificence, shrouded in coral, and watch the evaporated warplanes fly away, uncovering the viewpoint of the far-off universe of viciousness. When the Allies and the Japanese engaged in land, sea, and air combat nearly 80 years ago, the skies over the South Pacific burst into flames. Also, toward the finish of the conflict, in excess of 90 boats and 2,000 airplanes were lost in the Solomon Islands alone. Jumpers are presently rediscovering the disaster area and accepting moving pictures as a sign of the repulsions of war. The Solomon Islands are located 2,000 miles off the coast of Australia, and the 6 main islands and several smaller islands are scattered throughout the South Pacific. In any case, war broke out in this far-off area of Sinia during the 1940s, and the scars of that war are as yet apparent. World War II, which endured 2 years, changed things out of the blue and fabricated a safeguard against American assaults, and chose to reinforce their situation in the South Pacific. Furthermore, in May 1942, they figured out how to catch the Solomon Islands. However, the outpost would become a major focus of the Pacific War within months. In the mid-year of 1942, Japan started constructing a landing strip on Guadalcanal, the biggest island in the Solomon Islands. Understanding the essential significance of those structures, the military chose to assume command over the area, and on August 7, U.S. Marines arrived on the island in an unexpected assault. The two sides fought for control of the Guadalcanal base for the next 3 months. Military aircraft battled day to day over the Solomon Islands, and fights broke out ashore and adrift. At last, in November 1942, the unified powers won a conclusive triumph and the Japanese left the island soon. Toward the finish of the conflict, in excess of 25,000 Japanese and American warriors had been killed. Be that as it may, in spite of the calamity, today the skirmish of Guadalcanal is viewed as a defining moment in the Pacific theater and in the Second Great War as a rule, denoting the change from well-disposed safeguarding efforts to key procedures. In June 1943, only 7 months after the associated triumph at Guadalcanal, they had the option to make use and assault Ravel in Papua New Guinea. Japan lost control of the South Pacific at this point, and the war ended. Today, the front line has found another life as the Solomon Islands' primary air terminal, and fills in as a 1,000th commemoration dedication to fighters and islanders who kicked the bucket in the conflict. The battling in the Solomon Islands was one of the most fascinating occasions of the Second Great War. As a matter of fact, it was during that time that one of the most renowned accounts of the Pacific conflict was told. The story happens on August 2, 1943, 1 month after the Japanese soldiers left Guadalcanal, and they and John F. Kennedy crossed the dark island in the Channel. In any case, what occurred in the Solomon Islands made him exceptionally human. His boat sank when it crashed into a Japanese destroyer. The future captain was in such a precarious situation that some of his men initially perished, and the crew of the torpedo boat was believed to have perished after the accident. Afterward, he was safeguarded from a remote location by a banner drawn by the previous president on a coconut shell. Many years after the fact, Kennedy kept the skin in the Oval Office as a keepsake of his life. This is very different from the war relics from the Solomon Islands, which still fascinate people today. During the clash of the Solomon Islands, History specialists accept that Japan lost roughly 1,500 airplanes. In the meantime, the enemy had routed 50 Japanese and roughly the same number of Allied warships, and the sea off the coast was littered with wrecks. So what befell the military aircraft killed someplace in the Pacific Sea, or the war vessels sunk into anonymous watery graves in current times? Tree trackers and specialists have found these lost second world. It seems as though they're attempting to find the relics of the incomparable conflict. For instance, in January 2019, a group of specialists found the remaining parts of the U.S. Hornet, an American plane-carrying warship that partook in the clash of Nick Cruz close to the Solomon Islands in October 1942. Hornet went down to the bottom of the ocean after a decisive blow from a Japanese torpedo. Her final resting place was unknown for almost 80 years. In 2019, scientists financed by Microsoft fellow benefactor Paul Allen had the option to find the missing destruction. At long last, following 80 years on the seafloor, the boat is back at the center of attention. It began to receive more attention than the wreckage photographs. The Hornet's weapon can be clearly seen, and it is still prepared to attack. In the meantime, specialists from a similar endeavor likewise prevailed with regards to finding the remaining parts of a Japanese ship overhead. This boat she partook in the clash of Guadalcanal in November 1942. He wrecked a number of American ships off the Solomon Islands coast, causing significant damage. Be that as it may, the Japanese warship was in the end sunk by diligent assaults by the U.S. Flying Corps and sank in the waters of the Pacific Sea on November 14th. Like the Hornet, its definitive high-height asylum stayed obscure for quite a long time. The same research team then found a shipwreck in the central Solomon Islands province, just off the coast of Cevo Island, in January 2019, and quickly discovered that the long-lost collection of rusting WWII weapons and cargo had vanished. I had the option to take photographs. Ship. A few shallow wrecks have really become focal points for jumpers all through the South Pacific. For instance, Guadalcanal has long waters that were once famous for making salvos sound. Yet today it's known as Iron Base Sound because of the Second Great War wrecks littering the seafloor. Its location has been known since the war, but the artifacts that lie beneath the surface make it a little more mysterious. Picture taker Christopher Hamilton was persuaded and set out determined to track down them. Hamilton shared photos in March 2016 of an unexpected sighting off the Solomon Islands coast. There he discovered the wreckage of 3 downed WWII fighter planes. As indicated by paper reports, Hamilton set out from New Zealand on an undertaking to the most far-off islands of the South Pacific. He definitely achieved this goal with his discoveries in the Solomon Islands waters. In 2016, Hamilton stated, "I will be launching a sailing trip next month from New Zealand to Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, and Papua, reaching some of the most inaccessible and forgotten shipwrecks of WWII." He told Mail Online in 2017, "The destruction of 3 contender jets was supposedly first found off the shoreline of the Solomon Islands during the 1980s. Mr. Hamilton told Mail Online that he would not have discovered anything had it not been for the assistance of locals. "I figure the way to finding destruction isn't to adhere to a timetable," the picture taker proceeded. So what was the story behind the wreck Hamilton found? Specialists guarantee that 3 planes, 1 Japanese and 2 American, were lost in a progression of savage dogfights between the partners and hub powers. In addition, it is thought that each of them perished in 1943, when the United States won Guadalcanal. The Japanese airplane Mitsubishi A6M0 was a warrior intended for long-range battle and was first sent off in 1939. It had a range of nearly 2,000 miles and could travel 350 miles per hour. It was additionally furnished with 2 bombs and 4 automatic weapons, permitting it to go after adversary powers. In any case, this fearsome military aircraft could not hope to compare to different planes that Hamilton found on the sea depths, like Chris, Joker's Wild, or Dark Jack. This is the Boeing B-17 Flying Post, when perhaps of Japan's most risky foe, first entering administration in 1938. These planes likewise had a scope of around 2,000 miles, and the Boeing flying fortification had definitely more weighty gunnery than its Japanese same. As a matter of fact, the 74-foot-long plane conveyed up to 13 automatic weapons and around 17,600 pounds worth of bombs. While participating in an attack on the Japanese fortress of Lovell, the plane reportedly ran into trouble and crashed. The third airplane was the F-6F-3 Hellcat, which likewise filled in as a warrior for the U.S. Flying Corps and was sent off later than the other two of every 1943. Curiously, students of history accept that this airplane was once given the name Betsy on September 16, 1943. The airplane experienced a motor disappointment during an assault on Balliol in the Western Solomon Islands. Like the other two planes, the two Betsy planes tumbled from the sky and wound up lying 185 feet underneath the outer layer of the Pacific Sea. Human remaining parts are additionally caught inside. As he endeavored to land in the delicate water, Hamilton told Mail Online that shooting the wrecks carried him nearer to something frozen in time and staying immaculate for a really long time. It's difficult to portray the sensation of venturing into a wreck, particularly one that actually has human remaining parts caught inside. It's exceptionally bizarre, yet thrilling and extremely profound, Hamilton proceeded. Because of his revelation, more jumpers are currently ready to investigate wrecks off the shoreline of the Solomon Islands. Thanks for watching. If you want to stay updated with our latest videos, subscribing is the way to go. Just click that red button below and become a part of our channel family.